Today, I'm going to be exploring every single shack in Red Dead Redemption and explaining the importance behind it and the lore that's surrounding that specific location. Starting it off is a Lone Mule Stead, which is a shack in the West Elizabeth area right by Riggs Station and kind of in the same Strawberry area as well. This one is kind of a boring shack. There really is nothing going on with it. I guess technically you have like Blessed are the Peacemakers, the mission with Micah where you break him out of prison. It does end right around here, and there are a couple of like random events that can happen where you can like save people from thugs, but there's really not much going on. The really only cool thing going on is in the shed. There are a couple of valuables that you can loot from things, and there are a couple other things you can get in, but you can't even go inside the actual shack itself, which is kind of boring in my opinion, because if you can't go into the shack, it's not really a cool shack. And the really only interesting thing about this place is the little mill that they have on the property, which is probably where it gets the name Lone Mule Stead, because you probably just have a lone mule that goes around the mill and actually does the milling here. So that's basically the only interesting thing here, and honestly, one of the most boring shacks in the entire game. We then move on to one of the more interesting shacks, which is the Taxidermist House. This one is a special one for a specific stranger mission, where it's the stranger mission where if you go to like the train stations, there are a bunch of like hunting requests, and it's this lady here who wants to be a taxidermist, or is a taxidermist, and wants you to give her stuff. And this house is honestly painted really interestingly, and the thing is you can't go inside of the house, so it does kind of suck in a sense, but when you do eventually finish the stranger mission, you can actually go inside the house and get this really cool cutscene, which I'm going to be playing right now. So basically, John will be led inside the house by Elle Hobbs, who is a taxidermist inside the house. And even inside her house, on the outside, the house is pretty interesting looking with all these cool colors and all the taxidermy statues around it. But on the inside, it's also pretty crazy itself. I mean, she just seems to be a really weird woman. I mean, to be a taxidermist and like basically take animals' pelts and like reanimate them in a way, you have to be kind of a weird person yourself. And she just really seems weird. I mean, this is one of the most kooky houses I've ever seen in the entire game. And just having a bunch of like dead animals that are in these weird positions and statues, it's just so weird to me. I don't know. I would be so freaked out if I went into a house that has like a bunch of taxidermy statues on the inside. And they have all these set up in like specific positions. Like they're out here playing poker and having tea. It's just like, this is such a weird woman. And this is probably why she doesn't go outside of her house. She just has her friends, which are all these animals that are doing all these weird things. I don't know. It's just a really freaky house, and I think, well, it is a pretty cool shack. I really wish you could go inside of it outside of just this one stranger mission, because this is one of the hardest stranger missions in the entire game to complete. So it is kind of hard to even get inside the shack at all. And there is a little like other Easter egg, which is probably connected to her, where there's a stuffed gorilla that you can find a little bit north of this place. And I'm assuming this is probably her work, because there really isn't any other taxidermist here. And who else would be stuffing a gorilla besides her? But it's actually in this crate that's been broken. So it seems like during delivery, somehow it got broken, and somehow this crate was never delivered. Lenora View. Lenora View is a shack just a little bit north of this area, same in the Strawberry area, and this one actually has a pretty interesting story to it. So if you go up to the Lenora View shack, you can actually find a little letter here. And once you see this letter and you can see the shack, it's called The Note from Jim. And you can read this letter, and it says, "Back in a few days, gone to pick up Mildred from her mother's house. The new Miss Peyton. Best, Jim." And then you go to the Appleseed Timber Company area, you can actually find a crashed wagon right there. And after seeing a guy right above it, he's looking at this dead body here, you can go over to the dead body and loot this stranger's body. And on this stranger's body, you can find a bride's photograph. And you can also talk to this man where he says the poor bastard must have gone off the cliff. And he said that he probably knew the man, and the man was likely from the cabin down the way. So that's pretty close to this area. So I'm assuming this is Jim right here. And he actually died on the way to go picking up Mildred from her mother's house, which is just really sad. And at least there is a nice story to this one. And I think this shack is also pretty cool itself, because it does look kind of cool. I mean, it's a nice blue painted color, which is nice, because most of these are just wooden shacks. Watson's Cabin. So this is one of the most interesting shacks in the entire game, because there really is a story to this one. And the first time you go to Watson's Cabin, either Arthur or John, you're going to get this first little thing, which is there's a little story to go along with it. You can see outside there's a little donkey out here, and there's just a bunch of things that you can check outside. But you can see it's just this little small cabin, which doesn't seem to have a lot around it. It is like this nice plot of land, but once you go inside, you can finally get the story started. So if you go inside, you can actually meet a old woman inside who says "about damn time" and says that she's expecting someone.
Just leave what you got in the cellar and be on your way.
Based on her conversation, it seems like she doesn't know exactly who Arthur or John is, and then she says this.
Which one are you again? Walker? Wheeler? I don't know. All you boys look the same these days.
So basically, she thinks that you're one of her sons and has come here to deposit some stuff that they've maybe stolen from some other people as their gang members, and just depositing some loot because you're coming back. And then you can go downstairs and actually get a shotgun there, and then she starts getting a little suspicious because it's been taking a while.
Stop poking around and get back up here.
Eventually, she realizes that you're not who she thinks you are and catches up to her mistake.
What the hell you think you're doing? You put that back, or we won't. Stealing from me is the worst mistake you ever made.
So eventually, you can leave and go back the next day to get a whole new conversation with the Watson boys when they actually come back to the cabin.
I don't know who's dumber, you, Ethan, Edgar, or Ezra.
Keep telling you, Ma, we'll get you a new place. Anything you want. Ain't like we're short on money.
I don't want a new place. I got everything I need right here. How many times, Elijah? Shut your mouth or I shut it for you.
So it seems like the mom doesn't want to leave the house because it's somewhere she's lived her entire life and has everything right there, but the boys want to move into a better spot or do something else with the money because they're not living up to her standards because she wants something specific from them. But basically, you can eventually go into the house and actually confront them as well.
We got a visitor!
So once you try and go in the house, the boys come out and you immediately get put in a Deadeye scene, which is then makes it really easy to clear out all these different Watson boys because they really can't do anything to you when you're in the Deadeye mode. But eventually, after getting rid of all the boys, the mom gets really mad at you because you just killed her 3 sons.
What have you done?
Son of a...
And everyone you ever know.
But eventually you can go back and try and take her out yourself, which I did with a hog tie. I just went up to her and tried to hog tie her because I didn't want to actually hurt her because technically there's a third part, which I guess didn't work for me because maybe the hog tie like technically takes her out and there's supposed to be like a grave there. Maybe I didn't wait long enough, but either way you can go inside the house and she gets really mad at you for doing this to her because of course you just killed her entire family and everyone that's providing for her. But you can actually go inside and finally take the lockbox and actually get a nice little payout. So next up is Vedder's Echo, which is actually a really interesting shack, and it's right in this similar area in the Big Valley area. I had to give you guys a little jump scare with that one, but basically as soon as you get in, you get attacked by a bear who's snuck in through the back door and actually killed the one man who was living in there, which is really sad. It seems like this guy wanted his girlfriend named Annabelle to come here, and that's why a lot of people think this has some relation to Dutch, because there's poems from this guy to a woman named Annabella, which is very similar to Dutch's ex-girlfriend named Annabelle, who was killed by Colm O'Driscoll. But of course you can read the poems and they have absolutely nothing to do with Dutch or Annabelle at all. So it is kind of like an understandable reach, but it is just one of those things where it's like every Red Dead Redemption player wants to make connections with every single thing. And not every single thing is connected because you can clearly read the poems and they clearly have nothing to do with it. Also, you have like a pipe here that technically is like a Dutch companion request that you can give him, and I guess that's also part of it why people think there's like a connection with Dutch. But I feel like this one really doesn't have any actual connection to Dutch, and people are just trying too hard to make any actual connections here, and I really just don't think there's the case that this has any connection to Dutch's life. Stilt Shack. The Stilt Shack is a shack in the similar Big Valley area, which is actually very close to both of these other two places, but it's a place that Mr. Black and Mr. White go to at the end of their mission, and a lot of people think this is just like a pretty simple cabin. There's only one bed in it, so maybe there is a connection to Mr. Black and Mr. White are secretly gay lovers, which actually could be a true theory, I'm not gonna lie, but going inside of it, it's a pretty simple shack that doesn't really have a lot going on here. There are a couple things that you can collect here, but it mainly is used as a place for Mr. Black and Mr. Mr. White to go at the end of their stranger mission. But there also is a little bit of a clue on who the person who lived here was before Mr. Black and Mr. White actually got to go there. So a little bit further from this, you can find a man that got mauled by a bear, and you can actually find the antler knife here. And this is probably the man who lived there because it's pretty close to this area. It's like a little bit east of here, and you can just find a man being mauled by a bear. And there's no other place that this guy could have lived, so this probably was his actual house, and he lived in the stilt shack. So that is the guy who lived there. Lucky's cabin. So Lucky's cabin is kind of a destroyed cabin in the like Valentine area. It's pretty near Valentine, and if you go to Valentine, you can actually find it there. But there's really not much going on with it, but it is used as a very important location in one specific stranger mission, which is the one with Edmund Lowry Jr., which is called American Dreams, where you can find this is actually the base of the serial killer who is Edmund Lowry Jr., and you can actually go into the basement where he actually lives, and you can actually go confront him there. So that's kind of the main reason why this is like an important shack in the game. But besides Edmund Lowry Jr. being tied to it because he lives in the basement, or like he at least uses the basement as his base of operations, there really isn't anything going on here. It basically is just a destroyed cabin, and there's no actual shack to be considered on the top part of it. It's really just the basement. Clawson's Rest. This is another very interesting shack. This is in the Ambarino area, just a little bit north of like the whole Valentine area. You can go inside, you can actually see a very grisly scene, I'd say. You can also pick up an Otis Miller dime novel if that's what you're really looking for, but in the actual shack itself, it is kind of this boring basic shack. And you can see a little bunk bed with these two dead boys there. And it looks like the two dead boys died somehow, but you can actually realize exactly how they did die when you get to read a letter in the nightstand of the cabin. So after you open the nightstand, you can get this letter, which is called the letter to Glenn and Eddie from Mama. Glenn and Eddie, I've gone to track down those men and get our money back. The door is locked and the windows are boarded shut. Promise me you won't answer to nobody who comes calling, even if you think you know them. There's enough food and water for 4 days or more, but I should be home by tomorrow night at the latest. Practice your reading and writing for me. All my love, Mama. So it seems like their mom kind of locked them in this house. I don't know if the house actually was like fully locked in. I'm assuming they could have escaped some way if they really wanted to, but it seems like their mom kind of left them in the house, and then after a couple days, the mom didn't come back, and they ran out of both food and water, and they eventually either dehydrated themselves to death or ran out of food and starved themselves to death. But I feel like it's more likely that they ran out of water and they died that way, because it doesn't really seem like they would have died without any food, because there had to be enough food for like a couple days after that. And I think your body can survive for like 3 weeks without food, but it's like only 3 days without water. But I just don't understand why they couldn't have just gone out of the house. Like I feel like it wouldn't have been that hard if you're like really dying to go out of the house some way, but I guess they didn't want to live without their mom, and if their mom wasn't coming back, they didn't really want to go themselves. So I guess that's probably the reason why they eventually just died themselves. Planter's Bond. This one is right above Barrow Lagoon in the Ambarino area, but basically it's this guy who used to live here, and I guess he died somehow, but he was an ice skater. You actually see that his foot is chopped off, and he's this ice skater that got into a grisly accident early in his career, but someone really didn't like him, so they dug his grave out of the ground and left it out there because they just didn't think he deserved it, because he deserved to rot in hell instead of being in the ice, which is a really weird thing, but it's also a point of interest, and I covered this in my point of interest video, so I don't want to go too in depth onto this one. Dorman Crest. Dorman Crest is another shack that you can find in the Ambarino area. This one is super deep into Ambarino, so it's pretty hard to get into, and it does seem like it's really snowed in this area, and this person, whoever is in this house, probably had a really tough time living out here because there's nothing to eat at all, and you can go inside, and it seems like this person was probably trying to protect themselves from the cold because they have all these like newspapers up in the windows. It seems like the windows weren't fully boarded up, so it did seem like they're really having a tough time surviving from the cold out here. But actually, when you leave the cabin, you can find something even more interesting. So once you leave the cabin, you can see that there's a little trail leaving outside of it. You can see that you can actually go into Eagle Eye and actually pick up this trail. You can see this person likely left the house because maybe they needed some extra food, or maybe they're getting too cold inside and maybe had hypothermia and eventually just wandered outside because they had nothing else to do. Because a lot of times when you have hypothermia, you actually get really warm when you're about to die, and you can actually like just go out in the cold and like be fully naked and somehow survive like that at the end of your life when you have hypothermia. But eventually, after following his trail, you can find this man there, and he's stuck outside, and I guess he died in the snow after probably having hypothermia and just freezing to the death out here. But you can eventually take his carbine repeater, which he's stuck outside here with. I think this is a reference to some sort of movie. I think I might do a video on all the references to movies in Red Dead Redemption 2, but I'm pretty sure this is a reference to a movie. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but it's like a Western movie where the guy gets frozen in the snow, and he kind of gets stuck like this. It also could be a reference to The Shining as well. Adler Ranch. So you can actually go back to Sadie and Jake Adler's ranch after the game ends, or like even before the game ends. You can go immediately back to it after you get done with Eastward Bound in the first chapter of the game. And there really isn't a lot here. You can just see the burned out stuff, but you can also pick up this loot box, which is pretty funny, and then you can go inside the loot box and actually take some jewelry from it, which I think is probably Sadie's like wedding band, which is so funny that you can get like Sadie's jewelry and there's not like something to bring it back to her. There's no like gift to bring it back to her. You can just get it and keep it for yourself and maybe sell it to someone else. Cairn Lodge. So Cairn Lodge is a really interesting place you can go visit. The probably most interesting aspect about it is that it's used in the Stranger Mission, 3 noble men and a woman, which it's the location that Flaco Hernandez is actually posted up at, and this is where you duel him. So you can duel him outside and you can shoot him up. But once you go inside, you can actually see that there's a little bit of loot that you can take from there, and there's like a little map that you can do as well, which is pretty cool. There is a couple cool things inside the lodge itself, but it mainly is used as the place to have like the Del Lobo stationed out here and Flaco Hernandez posted up here during that one specific Stranger Mission. And it's probably just a place where it's like, oh, they want one guy here and they want Emmett Granger over here and they want Black Bell in Lemoyne. They just wanted someone in every single state they can go to in the game, so they're all like spread out in a different way. So this is probably why it's in Ambarino, because I'm assuming Flaco Hernandez as a Del Lobo isn't just posting up in Ambarino for no reason. There also is a really interesting random encounter that you can get while going to this location, where a man who says he was posted up in this cabin, which is kind of weird because Flaco Hernandez is also supposed to be from this cabin, who's a hunter, said that his other hunter friend went out and is missing for some reason. He just wants you to help, and you can go and look for his friend, and eventually you can find his friend. So his friend is actually on this like rock here where it seems like he's been mauled by a bear, and you can actually find this guy's body, and he really does have some bad wounds and is definitely not alive. And eventually, after returning to the hunter, you can tell him that his friend is clearly not alive, and the man will go out to his friend named Tucker and go eventually chase over to where Tucker is. And then after following this man all the way to Tucker's body, you can see a whole nother interaction where this guy goes over to Tucker and eventually checks this guy's body and says, "Oh no, Tucker, you died here." And then if you wait long enough, you can get a crazy interaction where if you just keep waiting and waiting and waiting, a bear will come and attack Tucker as well, so he gets the same fate as his friend. Dodds Bluff. Dodds Bluff is a shack that's just north of the Dakota River. So the Dakota River is right by it, and it's really in this nice area in Ambarino. And when you go inside, you will get to see a very, very grisly sight inside. So once you go inside, you can see there are these two men who it seems like have shot each other over this gold nugget, which you can again pick up yourself. But you can see that these two men have attacked each other just over this gold nugget and have left a huge scene in this area because they were attacking each other and probably fighting over this gold nugget, and attacked each other with crowbars and a hammer. So it made it this extremely, extremely grisly scene. Ches Porter. Ches Porter is like a full compound in the area in Ambarino, and it's also like a robbery target that you can do with Javier. And just in general, it's this really super interesting area because this whole compound with this inbred family who's all like intermarrying with each other, and they're forced to intermarry with each other, and they have their own like little dialect which is unique to just them, which I'm going to play for you right now.
You see that girl at the market googling at me again.
Googling at what a raggedy squirreler you is.
You see when I get a woman like that, don't you? Frazzle dipping all the night.
Frazzle dipping your little pullywag, more like.
We has that one we keeps in the woods. Pappy was boiling when he sees her, don't you?
Oh, what the hickory's her name now?
Digs her up an ass, don't you?
There's also a fan theory that the woman that they're talking about right here that they buried in the forest is actually the woman that was the mom from Clausen's Rest, and that's the reason why her 2 sons are eventually dead, because these people stole the money from them, and then the mom came back and was abused by these people and attacked by them, and then eventually like put in the forest and I guess died somehow there after they were abusing her. But just overall, that could be a theory that does work, but there's not really anything conclusive to like fully link that together. But these clearly are some weird and inbred and weird people. They're just overall like terrible people. I mean, the fact that they're like abusing a random woman is kind of crazy, and the fact that they're just this inbred family really shows that they probably shouldn't be interacted with. But there are a bunch of different ways that you can like rob these people. You can go around and there's like a mission with Javier that you can come and actually rob them yourselves, or you can just go here and just rob them like this, which is what I did here, because I was just posting up and I saw them and I was like, there's no reason I should let these people stay alive, because they've done so many bad things to other people. And I mean, I don't know, I just don't really like inbred people at all. I feel like there should be no reason that inbred people are alive, so I came here and gave them a little bit of the business. But the other interesting thing about this family is that they don't leave this area either, and that's why they have this weird language. The family doesn't want anyone to go outside of the family at all. That's why they have to inbreed, and they almost have no time outside of this area. So they're basically just stuck in this area and only interacting with the family at all times. It is one of the weirdest things in the entire game. It just is like the classic thing that Rockstar does, where they just throw in some of the most weird and deranged people in the entire game, and they make it part of like a mission or just a random thing you stumble upon in the game. 6 Point Cabin. So 6 Point Cabin is a O'Driscoll camp hideout, whatever you want to call it. It's a gang hideout that the O'Driscolls are at, and it's mainly used in the one mission where Kieran, Bill, John, and Arthur go and ambush the people here looking for Colm O'Driscoll, because supposedly he's holed up in the cabin, at least according to Kieran. And this is a pretty good mission. I feel like it is really interesting when Kieran, again, saves Arthur during that mission when the guy comes out of 6 Point Cabin. But there's not really that much going on with 6 Point Cabin. Again, when you do go in that mission, you can like loot the chimney and get stuff out of there, but there's not really that much interesting going on in 6 Point Cabin. And it's mainly used in that one specific mission to give it a little bit more depth, and I guess that's why they call it a shack in game. Furwood Rise. So Furwood Rise is actually the home of Deborah McGinnis, who is like the paleontologist woman that you can meet in game who's looking for a bunch of dinosaur bones. And Furwood Rise isn't really that crazy of a shack. It really just is this like one room home that you can go inside of, and you can actually go inside and steal a bunch of stuff from her, because she's almost never in the house. I don't think you can find her in the house in the game at all, because she, one, is in the stranger mission and is looking for these dinosaur bones throughout the game, but also you can actually only find her in the barn, which is where she actually is working on the dinosaur bone skeleton. And you can see that she has a bunch of stuff outside that has all these different bones and all these different setups here, which is, I don't know, it's kind of interesting out there. You can see like it actually does seem like she's working on stuff. But eventually, if you do go here and want to see the skeleton, you can go here and it's actually in the barn. It is kind of crazy to go here and check out the skeleton, because you can just see that a lot of these missions are like, oh, there actually is something to complete. And when you actually do see the skeleton, you're just like, oh my god, I did all of this. I had to go all around the map to get these dinosaur bones just to have her make this random skeleton that has nothing to do with an actual dinosaur. And just like, she's so stupid. I don't know. It's just such a funny cutscene. And it really is very similar to like the taxidermist house, where you go inside and you just meet an absolutely deranged character. Flattened Cabin. Flattened Cabin is a really interesting shack to me, because it is just like a regular cabin that's flattened by this tree. But the thing is, Rockstar made it so interesting that you can see the tree right next to it is also cut down. And like in the whole area, there seems to be a bunch of other stuff that's cut down. It seems like he was cutting down a lot of these trees. But I think there's a thing where if you cut down a tree, the roots are going to start dying, and then it's going to make the soil a little bit weaker. So what could have happened is he could have cut down the tree next to it, which resulted in his death because he ruined the roots right next to it. And you can also get a hatchet here, which is the hatchet he was probably cutting down all these trees with, which is also just a pretty cool thing to find as well. And also, you can only go into the cabin itself through the tree, which is actually pretty cool. You have to like climb on the tree and then jump down from it, which is pretty funny because you can't go inside the front door because randomly a barrel was inside and blocked it off. But when you go inside, you can actually find a little bit of stuff. You can find some stuff to loot from there, but you can also find the guy's dead body, which it seems like he also got crushed by it, which kind of sucks because he got killed by the tree that fell on him because he cut down the trees beside it, which is just kind of funny karma. But at the same time, this is probably like one of the worst ways to die possibly. Martha's Swain. Martha's Swain is another cabin in the Ambarino area, and this one actually has a pretty interesting story behind it. So you go inside of it, and there really isn't that much going on, but there is this letter here that we're going to be reading right now. It says, a letter to Martha from Garfield. My dearest Martha, I miss you so much. Life makes sense when we are together. This war no longer makes sense to me. When I signed up, oh, it seems like 1,000 lifetimes ago, everything seemed so simple. We were going to express our rights as states to do what we goddamn well pleased and hang whatever fools in the North told us. I cannot believe now that this was a principle I would die for, and yet it is a principle I've seen so many men I grew up with be slaughtered for, that and their own stupid pride. We Southerners are such proud fools. Now I'm only proud about one thing, the love I share with you. You, a Yankee, an abolitionist, everything I'm supposed to hate and now love so dear. How can you love me back when I am such a fool? I cannot wait for this war to end. I thought many times about running away, but General Harris has taken to shooting deserters. I am still too proud to allow for that. It seems we are headed towards an enemy camp in Scarlet Meadows for one last battle. We almost have no chance of winning. Our morale is almost entirely spent and the Yankees are far too strong, but after the accusations of cowardice leveled at General Harris for his failure to support General Quinn last month and all that damn drama, he seems hell-bent on a fight. I even heard Major Smith complain in the officers' mess about General Harris. None of his junior officers trust him very much anymore. I hope I do not die. Not because I care two figs for myself, but because of the sadness it would bring to you. I miss you, yours, Garfield. And then you can also find Martha's body in here where it seems like she's died somehow, but this is like over 30 years before the game happened, so I'm just kind of confused on why Martha's body is still here and why they haven't like sold the house to someone else or someone hasn't taken it over, because it seems like this place is in a lot better condition than this happening like over 30 years ago when the letter was from. But then you can also find Garfield himself in the battlefield at Scarlet Meadows. And you can find him impaled by something, and then after looting his body, you can find the letter to Garfield from Martha. And this letter says, Darling Garfield, I hope this letter reaches you before the battle of which you spoke. How dare you talk about getting yourself killed, you silly, proud, wonderful man. There is nothing finer than someone who can grow and develop and let go of old prejudices and lies, and that is the man you are, and that is why I love you so. But at the same time, you are a pig-headed, stubborn barbarian. Run away from the battle. Stop fighting and come to me. The war is over. Do not get yourself killed for a silly general's desire to prove that he is not a coward. Be a coward for all I care and run away. Come to me here. I am waiting for you. All my love, Martha. So it seems like Martha eventually died somehow after Garfield also died at this battle, and maybe she got some news sent to her over that way. But overall, this is just such a sad story, and it just does kind of suck that both of them had to die because they wanted to die for their love, and one of them was a little bit too proud. Veterans Homestead. This is the Veterans House in Ambarino as well. It's right on O'Creagh's Run, which is the lake that's named after the uncle's actor from Red Dead Redemption 1, which is also pretty cool. You can just go inside the Veterans Homestead before the Stranger Mission and actually just take everything this guy's got, which is pretty funny. But the main reason this is like a shack that's of interest at all is because of the veteran missions. I think the veteran missions are some of the most interesting missions in the entire game. Hamish Sinclair is one of the best Stranger characters in the entire game, if not the best Stranger character in the entire game. I feel like his Stranger missions are just overall great, and I think that's what makes this area pretty cool to me, because I feel like I can always go back to this area and just remember Hamish as a character and just think about him all the time, because it is kind of sad that he dies in the Stranger mission himself, which just kind of sucks. But I definitely do want to do a Stranger mission video very soon. I'm probably going to be going over every single Stranger mission in the game, very similar to the missions video I did extremely recently. Witch's Cauldron. The Witch's Cauldron is a weird kind of shack thing. I don't even know what you want to call this because it really isn't a shack up here, but it's this area that you can go visit in Ambarino that's like kind of a house. I don't know what you'd call this because it is just probably a place where witches are at. And there is just a genuinely really creepy vibe about this area. Just a bunch of like things that witches would have. Like there's a cauldron here, and that's why it's called Witch's Cauldron. There's a bunch of other like brewing things and other things you can do around here. But there's also a raven who just stares at you extremely weirdly when you do walk into this place. So I feel like that's also pretty funny. But just going into this place is just extremely eerie, especially when you're going at night. I mean, I didn't go fully at night, but it still was kind of creepy and eerie. And you can just see this like raven here. And if you do shoot the raven, you can actually get like a perfect 3-star pelt. But the main thing about Witch's Cauldron is of course the actual Witch's Cauldron itself. And if you do drink the Witch's Cauldron, your character will then pass out and then wake up the next day or like that night and actually have fully restored cores. So if you do want to get your cores fully restored, then you can again go to the Witch's Cauldron and drink the Witch's Super Brew and then get your cores fully restored. But I mean, this is a one-time thing that you can only do once in the game, so it's not that useful, but it is just a cool thing to go to because you do pass out and then get full cores. Fairvale Shanty. Fairvale Shanty is also a very interesting one as well that you can go to because you can see a dead body right outside as soon as you get there. So you're like, oh, what's this dead body out here doing? And then once you go into Fairvale Shanty itself, you can see what the dead body is actually there for. He and this other guy, it seems like, got into a duel. I guess the guy outside probably shot the other guy first or got shot first, but then shot the other guy and stopped him there because the other guy is still in the thing. And it seems like they're fighting over some jewelry and a gold nugget and some other money here, which again, it's just kind of very similar to that other place where they died and they fought over that money there. So it's very similar to that, but it seems like the guy got shot in here and the other guy got shot and died outside instead. But overall, it is a pretty cool place to look at, but it is very similar to that other one. I think that's Dodd's Cabin. So I don't really think it's all that interesting. Willard's Rest. Willard's Rest is actually a really interesting location. It's where the widow is located and very similar to a lot of these other places that have like stranger missions here. You can't actually go to it in the actual game until you actually do meet the widow herself, and then you can go inside the cabin. But you actually can unlock it kind of if you get like a robbery tip from a guy who's been stalking Charlotte, who's the widow there, and then you can go inside of that way. It's just so funny that you can have like a robbery there and then it's actually there in the stranger mission as well. But this is a really cool place because I feel like this is, again, similar to the Hamish thing, one of the best stranger missions in the entire game. I do love Charlotte as a character. I think it's really nice that Arthur can kind of like pass on his survival skills to someone else, especially someone who is like grieving in the death of their husband there. It's very similar to Arthur because he kind of had to get over his grief in the loss of people. So very similar to Arthur. I feel like her story's there, and I just think overall it's probably one of the better stranger missions in the entire game. And the funny thing is, actually after finishing that mission, you can actually get the robbery loot there from Charlotte because she'll give it to you at the end of the stranger mission, which is just pretty funny in general. But I do really like this area, and I think it's just made so much better off because it does have such a great stranger mission. Manito Glade. Manito Glade is a shack in the area right by the Murphy Brood area, and it seems like this guy is extremely against visitors because he does just say a bunch of things at you. You can go there for a bunch of different times to get different dialogue, but this is a couple of the dialogue that he does say to you.
Piss off! Go away! Ooh, don't make me come outside! Don't make me come outside! Could you do me a favor and go away now, please? Will you please go away and bother somebody else? You're all bastards, bastards, bastards! A man's home is his castle!
Genuinely, the Hermit is one of the funniest characters in the entire game, and his home is kind of an interesting place to go because he has so many different dialogue lines and voice acted lines out. And honestly, whoever voice acted him really needs a gold medal for this because he's one of the funniest characters specifically because of his voice and because he hates anyone who even gets in his personal space. But the shack itself is not really all that interesting. The only cool thing about it is that it actually houses the Hermit, and the Hermit is a very interesting character. He has a ton of different lines. He also has a pretty funny hat and a rare shotgun that you can get from him, but inside there really isn't that much going on. And I feel like inside is kind of underwhelming when it has such an interesting character that you can meet outside of it. Reed Cottage. Reed Cottage is a home right by Annesburg, and outside of it there's like a well and an outhouse, but there really isn't that much going on with Reed Cottage. It does have a nice like painting outside. I guess it's like painted black and orange, but inside of it there really isn't that much going on. It just is kind of this boring area that you can go and you can take some stuff. Like there is some loot in the chimney, which is pretty cool, which is like a map that you can actually get there, which is probably the most interesting thing about it. It's like the only unique item in there, and I feel like this is kind of one of the more boring shacks in the entire game because there really isn't that much going on there. You can see like a photograph on the wall where it does seem like this guy was a coal miner, and it makes sense because he's right by Annesburg, but besides that there's really nothing going on in the shack. Deer Cottage. Very similar to the Reed Cottage. This is kind of just a cottage in the area, which I guess has a similar painting scheme, so I guess there's probably some relation between Deer Cottage and Reed Cottage, especially when you can literally just flip the R and the D and they're the exact same thing. So maybe these people did have some kind of a relation with each other. I don't know what that would be, but because they're painted so similarly and have extremely similar names, there probably is some reason to that. But similarly, there really isn't anything going on in Deer Cottage exactly the same as Reed Cottage. There's basically nothing going on in either of these cottages, but there definitely is some deeper lore around it, but I don't know what that would be because there's nothing in either of these cottages that would really prove anything between them. Sawbone Clearing. Sawbone Clearing is a little shack right outside Annesburg, which is actually not really important at all because you can't go inside of it at all until the Mrs. Londonderry debt collection mission, where you can actually go and Mrs. Londonderry, whose husband was actually working in the coal mines and died in the coal mines, very similarly to the Downs family, which Arthur helps in Chapter 6. This is also something that you can only find in Chapter 6, so it does seem like this is supposed to reflect basically the Downs family exactly the same because the father dies and there's a single mother with a child, I guess, and a young male child, so it does seem to reflect the Downs' life as well, especially when Archie Downs was also working in the mines for a little bit. So this is probably supposed to reflect that, and Arthur goes to these people and eventually can say that the debt is cleared from them and not take their money anymore. So that's basically the only reason why Sawbone Clearing is actually important in the game, because it's a part of these debt collection missions at the very end of the game that I know probably not a lot of people would have played, but this is a pretty good mission, and I feel like it does a good job of reflecting Arthur's character change towards the end of the game and saying that he can basically become a better person, because this exactly reflects the Downs family, because it's basically the exact same thing as the Downs family, but this time Arthur is making it right. Huron Glen. Huron Glen is a place you can go, and it's right by Butcher Creek, and it's this kind of like overgrown and dilapidated shack right by Butcher Creek. You can go inside of it, and there's not that much going on there. It basically just is a boring shack there, but it is kind of away from Butcher Creek, so I don't really know what Rockstar was kind of like thinking with this one, because it is a named location right by Butcher Creek. I don't know why they wouldn't have just put it as a specific place in Butcher Creek, or if there's a specific reason why Huron Glen got a name and Butcher Creek didn't get, like, it wasn't just included in Butcher Creek itself. But you can go outside of it. It is kind of a cool place to visit because it's probably the most interesting building in Butcher Creek, but there's not that much going on with it, and it's kind of just this dilapidated shack. Clingman. The Clingman is an area you can find similarly in the Roanoke Ridge area. It's basically this outpost here that's very interesting because of the character you can find there.
State your side, sir. North or south?
Well, I sure ain't from the south.
Lucky for you.
Captain Hayden Russell, 29th Ambarino Volunteer Infantry. Do you bring news from General Skollick?
Who's General Skollick?
I'm awaiting orders. We will move on Lemoyne soon and take Saint Denis from the rebels.
You do know what year it is, right?
What kind of question's that? 1862, April 14th. Now move along, civilian, and watch yourself. Johnny Reb's in the area.
But basically, Hayden Russell is a character that has some severe memory loss and doesn't understand what day it is, and is forced to like relive the same day over and over and over again, and is waiting on orders for the Civil War to attack Saint Denis. But basically, he has some really bad memory loss and is forced to live the day over and over and over again, which makes him a really interesting character, and you can have multiple different interactions with him. Osmond Grove. Osmond Grove is a shack that you can find similarly in this Roanoke Ridge area, and if you do go inside of it, you can see that there's like a bunch of smoke going inside of it, so you have to kick the door open and realize that once you're inside of it that a lot of people have died here, likely because of smoke inhalation, which it looks like the chimney was left on and then the doors were like barred from the inside and they all died in there. I don't know if this was some sort of like pact where they all had to die together and someone wanted the family to die together, because it does seem like the doors are locked from the inside, so they're kind of like doing carbon monoxide poisoning to themselves by locking the doors from the inside and not allowing any of the smoke to go outside, which I guess seems kind of weird to me. I don't understand why none of these people would have tried to survive or have some way to get out of it. Maybe they're all just sleeping and someone like accidentally locked the doors from the inside and they couldn't get out of it because they didn't know what was going on when they actually were feeling the carbon monoxide poisoning. But either way, this is just a really sad thing to find. It does just kind of suck that all these people died for some reason because of carbon monoxide poisoning, because they couldn't get outside at all. Houseboat. The houseboat is stationed in Lemoyne, and it's basically just a house on a boat. I mean, there's not really that much going on with it. This was also covered in my point of interest video, because on the houseboat there actually is a phonograph, which is like a recording thing back in the day, basically a record player from really back in the day. I think it was invented by Thomas Edison. You can go on there, you can actually see the phonograph there, but there's not really that much interesting going on with the houseboat. It is kind of a boring shack location. It's mainly used as like a point of interest because of the phonograph there. McLean's house. This is also a little ranch area in the Lemoyne area right by the river, very close to where the houseboat is as well. It is this kind of cool ranch, and I mean, it is kind of interesting when you actually see places that seem like real places. Like McLean Ranch seems like a place that's real. I mean, it has like things going on there. There's a windmill there. It really does feel like a ranch, but then you go in the house and the house is so small in comparison to how big the ranch is, where it's like the ranch could have like 10 different people working there and the house is a tiny house. That doesn't even make sense in terms of it. It literally is like a shack house, and then you have this huge ranch around it, which is just so funny to me, because I don't know why you wouldn't have just a little bit bigger of a house when you have that big of a ranch there. But it is this kind of cool place. I mean, it is just kind of like a farm there, and you can see that these people are probably sustaining themselves based off of the profits from the ranch. Trapper's Cabin. Trapper's Cabin is a very small cabin in the Lemoyne area right on the river there, and Trapper's Cabin is actually pretty interesting because it is involved in a stranger mission, similar to a lot of the other places in this one that they're involved in stranger missions, but this one's actually involved in a stranger mission where you actually have to take over the cabin because night folk have infested the cabin and taken it from this guy named Old Cajun. This is actually one of the hardest stranger missions to actually get in game. I don't know really how you do get it. I think you have to do it at night, and then you meet this guy, and then eventually fight through a bunch of people, and then eventually go back to his house where it's been taken over by night folk, and you have to fight them out and drive them out of the house before the guy can eventually return to it. I think this is a pretty cool place, and the fact that it's actually like used in a stranger mission in a unique way as like a setting for a stranger mission versus a lot of the other ones, just like you go inside, you get a cutscene. I guess it's similar to like the Black Bell place, where that's used as a place to like fight off people from this. This is a cool one because you actually get to go inside and like fight people and attack them from inside the cabin itself. So I feel like this genuinely is just one of the more interesting cabins. The fact that it's actually used in a stranger mission is just great to me. So it is a nice use of the cabin. I do think it's in a pretty cool area. I mean, I was outside here and I shot a gator and took its eggs here. So it is a cool place if you're just operating for a little bit in the area. Bile Edge Cabin. The Bile Edge Cabin is mainly used as the Strange Man is here, because this is like the Strange Man cabin. I also covered this in the point of interest video, but there's not really much going on in here besides it having a lot of different connections to the Strange Man. If you do want to search up what happened with the Strange Man and who he is as a character, there are so many better videos to do that than this one, but it's just kind of this cool cabin in the middle of Lemoyne Swamp. Crawdad Willie's. So Crawdad Willie's is this kind of basic cabin, similarly in the Lemoyne Swamp area, but this area is closer to like the Lanahatchee River and the actual like river area. But Crawdad Willie's is actually pretty interesting because there's multiple different random encounters that use this house specifically as the place you have to go for the random encounter. So there's this one specific one where a woman is held hostage in this specific cabin here, and you have to go and save her from these men who are attacking her and holding her hostage. I don't really know the reason that she's like getting held as a hostage, because I think they're just probably there to rob the cabin, but the fact is this is a pretty interesting cabin because it's used in this mission, and there's also another one where you can find prisoners outside of it who have said that they basically took out the people in the cabin and like rob them and then go somewhere else, which I don't know if this is necessarily like this supposed to be the same people in both missions, where it's like this woman is also the people that the prisoners got, but I guess it kind of makes sense. I just feel like it's kind of weird when Rockstar has like multiple missions that contain the same place and they don't really make sense lore wise, because they could just add in a whole nother shack to do the prisoner one or a whole nother shack to do this one, but instead they combine it into two things. It doesn't really make sense lore wise when one of them is like you're saving this woman from a hostage situation and the other one, prisoners are coming in, killing them and robbing their house. So maybe she gets killed in one of them and saved in the other one, but I guess that's just what happened here. Either way, this is a very interesting mission, and I think just having multiple random encounters for this shack makes it so much more interesting than a lot of these other ones, which are just like a random shack that you go to and there's nothing going on inside of it. Catfish Jackson's. Catfish Jackson's is super interesting. I really love this place, and it's got to be one of the most interesting ones, and I'm just gonna let this interaction play out for you.
I reckon you had enough, Pa.
Enough? All I had enough of is you.
We ain't had food in the keep for weeks.
Oh, well, you ain't a babe in the crib no more. You full grown now, boy. Stop pulling in your pieces.
You'd only gamble or piss it away if I did.
You damn maggot. Who the hell you think you talking to? You need to learn some respect.
This is why Ma left. Look what happened to you. Pa, there's someone in the house.
Nate, go to your room.
Yes, Pa.
But basically, this guy right here, this father here, is a drunkard and abuses his son, and the mom ran out on them after she didn't want to deal with it anymore. But you can go to this house multiple times and have multiple different interactions with them. And actually, one of the most interesting things about this interaction itself is that the son, if you eventually go to this house multiple times, will eventually become exactly like his father if the father dies in these robbery missions. It's also included in a debt collection mission as well, where you basically do the exact same thing as well. So that's also pretty cool. But this is genuinely just one of the more interesting interactions that you can find in the game, because it is just so realistic, where the son becomes exactly like his father even when he doesn't want to be like his father at all. But to finish the robbery after tying up the dad outside, you can go back inside and ask Nate for the location of the money they have in the house after threatening him, because he's hidden under the bed, and you just ask him for the money and he tells that it's in this chimney. And eventually, after taking the money, which is like $50, you can eventually find this letter in the dad's room, which says why the mom eventually left. Dearest Nate, I don't know how many letters I've written now, but I won't stop trying. Even the act of writing feels like some connection to you, which is certainly better than none. I can understand how hurt and angry you must be for walking out on you like I did, but I promise that I love you with all my heart. I just couldn't take it a day longer. You know your father's temper, especially when he was drinking, which was all the time at the end. I found work and I'm renting a small house. Just give me the word and I will send for you. We can both start again. Love always, Mama. So basically the mom had left after the dad was beating her and just being drunk all the time. And the dad has been basically holding these letters from Nate and not allowing Nate to talk to his mom, because his mom would just have Nate instead, because there's no reason that Nate would stay with his dad who beats him and is drunk all the time if he could go with his mom. Old Harry Fenn. This is very close to Catfish Jackson's and is actually like a pretty interesting place to go to, because it's actually an abandoned slave catcher area. And you actually figure it out by reading this newspaper scrap that's on the table here, which says like they want some money for a slave that has escaped and you can go catch it and get some money in reward. So clearly they'd only have it because they're a slave catcher. And then you can also go out, and it's pretty near this area, you can go to the river and actually find this dead body, which has some shackles on it and is like the super old corpse, and it does seem like they have a collar on their neck. There's also a letter you can loot called Letter to Uncle Lewis from Elijah. Dear Uncle Lewis, I will keep this brief because I am on the run once again. After escaping the switch and the whip of the Pennington family, I was captured by a white man outside the town of Rhodes and have spent the last 3 months or so in the worst conditions of my life. He took me to a shack called Old Harry Fenn in southern Lemoyne, where I was chained to a wall night and day in a filthy room with only the barest minimum of sustenance. I ain't sure if he was a slave catcher by trade or just plain evil or both, but if I hadn't escaped my shackles, I doubt I would have survived much longer. Now I intend to make my way as safely as possible up to Canada to join you and Cousin Samuel. I imagine it will take me a few weeks, but I am determined to remain free, and I am very much looking forward to continue my schooling with you. I intend to stow away on a train heading north, and will post this letter when I reach the next town. Best, Elijah. So it seems Elijah had been captured by the man who runs Old Harry Fenn, which is a guy that you can finally eventually find as a bounty target named Robbie Laidlaw. And you can see this actual slave area that they're all captured and shackled in, which is just absolutely disgusting. But it seems like Elijah eventually died because he didn't have any food to eat and he eventually ran out. So that's why he did die out there on the river. I don't know how the body hasn't decomposed a little bit longer, but you can also find this family document and the family photo here, which just seems to be a slave family. And this is the last thing you need to unlock the Robbie Laidlaw bounty that you have to do, because it is kind of hard to unlock. You have to get a bunch of things in this house before going and getting the bounty for Robbie Laidlaw. Radley's house. So this is the house where you can eventually save Tilly from the Foreman brothers here, and this is a pretty interesting place to check out because it's only really used in that one mission. It is this kind of bigger house on the bigger side. It's not really a shack like a lot of the other places, but it's not really all that interesting. There's not that much to do in this place besides rescue Tilly in that one mission, but it does seem like it was used as a gang hideout by the Foreman brothers for at least a small amount of time, because that's why Tilly mentioned it in the mission. She was like, Miss Grimshaw, there's a place around here that used to be used as a gang hideout by the Foreman brothers, the gang I used to run with. But it seems like it was small enough to get the Foreman brothers there, because the Foreman brothers are only a 6-person gang compared to the Vanderlyn gang has 25 people. So it wasn't like this was something that could support the Vanderlyn gang, but definitely could support the Foreman brothers because they're a much smaller gang. But it's mainly used in that one mission where you do save Tilly, and it's not really all that important outside of that because there's not really that much interesting stuff in this house. It is just kind of a basic shack and a place to go that there's not really that much going on inside of it. Robard Farm. This, again, is one of the best shacks in the entire game. I really love this place, and I feel like it has one of the more interesting stories out of all the shacks. A lot of them have stuff going on. But you can see a dead body outside of the shack immediately as soon as you get to it. And she actually has a thing that you can loot from her, which is a letter to Annette from Claude. Annette. I did not want to write this letter. I thought I had been clear at the stable and clear again when you waited for me outside the general. Harriet was still inside. She could have seen you. It's a miracle she did not. Now, I know I made promises to you, and I know the time we had was good, but Harriet is my wife, and if she's willing to give me another chance, I need to give her and myself that opportunity. I cannot know you any longer. Please stop looking for me in town. Please stop leaving me packages at the post office. Please, for the love of God, please do not approach Harriet. I do care about you, but I cannot have you in my life anymore. Leave me and my family alone. Claude. So clearly from this letter and this murder scene outside here, she did not take this all that kindly, and being the affair partner was not what she wanted to be. She wanted to be the number one woman of Claude. And you can see inside that she actually murdered both Claude and Annette as well, which is also just kind of a grisly scene. I wanted to not look at it for as long as possible. But generally, this is one of the more interesting shacks in the game because I really do like the story behind this one. Annette wanted to be the main partner. She couldn't deal with both Harriet and Claude being together and her not being the main partner of Claude. So she had to kill them because she didn't want to live herself there. And I guess she maybe got attacked by Claude or just stabbed herself. I don't really know what happened, but she had to die as well. Old Trail Rise. So this one is used in that one mission, Pouring Forth Oil, where you can find Sean here, and this is where they park the oil wagon. But you can go downstairs and you can actually find something that's very interesting. There's a lot of these different sleeping bags down here, and it seems like people have been sleeping here or living here, and there's not really that much going on down here. It seems like this broken place above that got burned down pretty easily. And then all these people were supposedly living down here and just hanging out down here. It seems like there's a full setup going on down here. So maybe a lot of people were living here. So I was looking around here and I was like, oh, what really is going on here? And I realized that this is probably an underground railroad area because you see all these different sleeping bags down here. And you see this is right by the Lemoyne border, which Lemoyne was definitely a slave state. And I'm assuming New Hanover at least was a border state, or it was just something that there was no slaves in there because there really isn't anything to suggest that people in New Hanover owned any slaves. And then when looking around at this area, it definitely seems like the place where you would hide runaway slaves on the Underground Railroad because it just seems like an area where you could hide a bunch of people in your basement, and there is the burned, charred, dilapidated building above it. So I'm assuming that was just a normal house before. And you can also see all these different names that are carved into the beams here, like Willis Trundle, 1855. That seems like the perfect time for the Underground Railroad. So I would assume these are people that were on the Underground Railroad and actually got out of captivity and eventually found their way to freedom, which is just so cool. And I feel like no one else has maybe noticed this. I don't know. I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about this, but I'm assuming this was a spot on the Underground Railroad. Larn Sod. So Larn Sod is a little home out here in the middle of New Hanover on the plains of New Hanover. You always see this guy who lives in Larn Sod. He always goes up to this tree and like pays his respects to the woman, I'm assuming, who died at the grave and lives in the grave there. And then he's the guy in the house, but you can go inside the house, but there's really not that much going on. It's just kind of a boring old shack, and it's just kind of like a guy's house in there. I don't know. There's not really that much going on, but it does seem like he used to live here with his wife, and his wife passed away, and that's why he always goes to her gravesite. But there's not really that much else going on in this area, so it's not that interesting of a shack. Gill Landing. So this is the place where Jeremy Gill lives, and it is this nice kind of shack on the lakes of Flatiron Lake, which is pretty cool. And you can go inside. You can clearly see that this guy is a major fisherman, because it seems like everything inside is all about the fishing. But this is where you can meet Jeremy Gill. You can hang out with him for a little bit, but there's not really that much else going on. It really is the place where just Jeremy Gill lives, and is used as like a setting for that. But there's not that much else that like explains more about his life, besides he maybe had like a wife beforehand, and he likes to fish a lot because there's a lot of fishing stuff going on in this area. Shepherd's Rise. So Shepherd's Rise is one of 3 different cabins, which are basically new built cabins only in the epilogue, in areas that Arthur can visit during the regular part of the game. And basically all 3 of these cabins are just pretty boring cabins. There's basically nothing on the inside. They're all newly built cabins on the outside, and looking in this one, it has a pretty simple layout and there's not that much going on with it. But when you eventually do go to the front, you can see that it's actually for sale. So all 3 of these cabins are newly built cabins that are sold by this company, H. Fisher. And the next one is Argyle Rise, which is in Lemoyne in the Scarlet Meadows area. And this one is actually on the Civil War area. It's also right next to a Lemoyne Raiders gang camp, which is kind of crazy to me. Imagine having a house right next to a gang camp. I don't know if I'd really want it to be there, but this one is also really funny to me, because at least some of the other ones are just like random areas. This one is right on the Boulder Glade Civil War battlefield, which I just don't understand at all how you could make a house and just include parts of the Civil War battlefield. They just put a fence around it, and just like there's random things from the Civil War battlefield. There's literally a cannon on the property that they don't move at all. I don't know if this is just an oversight by Rockstar, or maybe the real estate agent just wanted a little bit of history on the land. But either way, this is pretty funny. And I just feel like generally it's just funny to have just a fence around all these Civil War battlefield areas, and just having it be a part of the property itself. And the next one is Ridgeview, which is right by Ansburg and right by Emerald Station specifically. And this one is also pretty simple. It's just another one of these boring ones. I mean, I show you the layout of the first one, and the layouts are very similar for all the other 2, but it is just kind of interesting that they have these newly built houses that are for sale. I feel like this could have just been a cool place to add like a safe house system like they do in some of these other games, and have like a property that you could purchase, because these are newly built properties that are for sale, but yet no one's going to move into them in the game because they're just for sale in game. So I feel like this could have been a really interesting place where Rockstar could have added a purchasable property, which you can go inside and go to at least for a little bit as like a safe house. And I feel like that would have been really cool to add into the game. Tanner's Reach. So Tanner's Reach is the place where Evelyn Miller eventually did go if you do play his Stranger mission. I feel like this is genuinely just a pretty interesting shack to go to. I mean, Evelyn Miller is one of the more interesting characters in the entire game. I really do love his Stranger mission quest, and how he's this kind of like mythologized figure by both Dutch and a lot of the other people in the gang. And when you go inside of the house, you can clearly tell that it is a writer's place, because there's so many different pages strewn across the floor, and it genuinely just seems like this guy is just writing all the time in there. And Evelyn isn't actually in the house here, but when you do go on the Stranger mission, he does eventually go back to the house. And then there is this one cutscene when you do eventually go to Evelyn Miller's death, because he does die in this house because he locks himself inside trying to end writing a book, but he doesn't actually finish it because he just starves himself to death. But eventually the house does eventually get burned down, because Evelyn Miller's book, where it says he has his will there, says that he wants to fly high in the sky. He doesn't want to be soaring with all the other people in the worms in the ground. He wants to be with the eagle, so he wants everything to be burned down. So it is pretty cool when you do eventually go and burn down this place, because it genuinely just is like a good way of like ending off one of these shacks. I feel like it is kind of sad that a lot of these other places don't have anything that kind of like progresses their story, because I feel like a lot of these shacks are just things in the game that you go to maybe if you're exploring the world, world, but there's not really like any progression to any of the stories, similar to like the ones that could have been sold here. I feel like it would have just been cool to have something that you can go into the game and like change a little bit. And I hope they have that in GTA 6 because that would just be a really cool thing. But this one is nice, and it's kind of nice that you actually get to burn down it and see it actually burn down. And I don't know, it's just a nice way to see Evelyn Miller off. Swadbass Point. So Swadbass Point is just this pretty kind of interesting shack that you can find on the lake. I think this is Lake Oanhila. I'm not 100% sure. I don't really go to this area a lot, and I just feel like this place is genuinely kind of boring. I mean, there's not that much going on in this one, and the shack is also boring. There's nothing going on at all here. But the one cool thing about it is that you can go and sit on the edge of the dock and look out into the lake, because this area genuinely is really beautiful. Stillwater Cabin. So Stillwater Cabin is a place in New Austin in the Stillwater Swamp area, Stillwater Creek area that you can go and you can check out. This is really just a place in Red Dead Redemption 1. It's part of a Red Dead Redemption 1 Stranger mission. So I feel like that's the main like link to it. There's not really much going on in Red Dead Redemption 2 around it. It's just a classic thing of Rockstar not adding a lot to New Austin. And this place clearly got the short end of the stick because there's genuinely nothing going on here when there is a Stranger mission in Red Dead Redemption 1. Green Hollow. Very similarly to the last place, there really isn't anything going on here. This is right on the border of Mexico, so at least that's pretty cool. And it is this kind of like abandoned and broken down place in New Austin, so I feel like that's also kind of cool in a way. It seems like it's this brick house that you can go and check out, and it's fully abandoned and broken and just totally torn down, but there's not much else going on besides it being this broken down place because there's really nothing to loot here. Rio del Lobo house. So this one is on the Rio del Lobo, and it is just kind of a cool house, and it's like in this really nice area. I really do like the area of New Austin right on the river, but it is on the inside basically just a place to stay and hang out a little bit. If you're in the New Austin area and you need a place to sleep, this could be a cool place to go. And there's a little bit of loot inside of it, which is kind of nice, but there really isn't that much going on here that would make it an interesting place because there's genuinely just no lore in this area at all because New Austin just in general is extremely cooked. The Old Bacchus Place. So the Old Bacchus Place is a place on the river of the Rio del Lobo, and it's a big part of Red Dead Redemption 1. I feel like you go here with Nigel a couple times, and this is where you actually like set sail into Mexico from, I believe. But you can go inside of the Old Bacchus Place, and there's a bunch of rats inside, so it's this cool like rat infestation, which I feel like this would have been at least pretty interesting for some of the other places to have at least like something going on inside of it. And I feel like none of the other ones have genuinely anything interesting going on inside of it. Like at least this one has a rat infestation, and while this isn't like the most interesting of lore, there's at least something going on. You can also have a fertility statue which can be picked up inside of the chimney there, which is like a rare valuable item that you can get, which I feel like that's also at least a little bit cool. But there really isn't that much going on in here besides a rat infestation. It seemed like the person inside left in a hurry because there probably was a rat infestation, and who would want to live in a house that has a rat infestation? Pleasance House. So Pleasance House, similarly to these other ones, is just a pretty boring shack that you can find in New Austin, and this one does have a couple of missions that you can go here in Red Dead Redemption 1, but I feel like pretty similarly to these other places, there isn't anything here to do in Red Dead Redemption 2. It really is just a place to have a bed here that you can sleep and hang out for a little bit, and there might be like a couple of things that you can steal from here, but there's not enough going on here to really deserve a shack mention. Lake Don Julio house. So this one at least has a little bit more like Red Dead Redemption 1 swagger, because this does have like a bit going on, because it is the place where Jack finds Agent Ross in Red Dead Redemption 1, and this is the place where he's supposedly like staying at for the weekend and going hunting. So at least there is like a little bit of connection to Red Dead Redemption 1 and an actual like real connection to Red Dead Redemption 1. Like the other ones don't really have much going on. You can also find this little dime magazine there, which these dime magazines are actually really cool. I really love the graphics on the front of them. They honestly just look great, but there's not that much going on here either. And I feel like another one, it's just there's nothing in Red Dead Redemption 2 that really makes it any cooler than it was in Red Dead Redemption 1, and Red Dead Redemption 1 was like 10 years ago. Silent Stead. Another one very similar to these other ones, but this one does have one goat in the back, so that's at least kind of cool. But inside of it, there's nothing going on. It does have like a chimney that's going on, so it does seem like someone at least lives here, but there's no one inside when you do go there. It does just seem like kind of a ranch area where people in New Austin live, but you can loot at least a little bit of stuff in the lockbox. the Scratching Post. So I'm not 100% sure about this place, but I think it's actually used a lot in Red Dead Redemption Online. So that at least is kind of a cool thing, where this is actually a pretty important place in Red Dead Online, where there's like a couple different missions that go on specifically in this place. And you can see inside of Scratching Post, it's just kind of this weird, creepy, eerie vibe going on inside of it. So I can understand why this was used a little bit more than some of the other ones. The other ones are just like basic shacks. And this one at least is like, oh, there's a creepy demon, or there's some like weird witchcraft going on in this area. But again, pretty similar to these other ones, there's not that much that you can actually get from this place. I believe there's like a rare necklace that you can get inside and some jewelry that you can take, but it's not all that interesting to really deserve like a real mention in the game. I feel like it's just another boring shack that you have to go to see every single shack in the game. And last but not least, I have Venter's Place, which I think is probably one of the most interesting shacks, and definitely the most interesting in New Austin, which is the very last place we're going to be going to. So this is Venter's Place, which is a shack in New Austin that's actually taken over by Del Lobos. And you can go, you can find these Del Lobos there. And if you do like sneak around a little bit, I mean, this guy caught me for a little bit because I was running, but if you do sneak around a little bit and go to the back, you can actually see a pretty interesting scene play out.
Hey! Having fun without me? Cabrones!
Wait, my friend. We had no fun in your absence.
Ooh, well, ain't you boys tired? I am flat worn out.
You see what you did? Put an end to the festivities?
Get some rest, Marco. I'm already sleeping.
Jorge, how about you, more mezcal?
Why don't you turn in, honey? We'll carry on where we left off when the sun's up.
Well,
Okay, yeah.
what will we pay for?
So you can see these men are flat out drunk and are paying this prostitute to sleep with them. But then you can see the prostitute actually gets them all to go to sleep, and then she takes all their money and robs them, which generally is a pretty smart idea on her behalf. But in general, it's just pretty funny because you can see these guys, they're all just passed out drunk. They're Del Lobos. They think nothing can go wrong with them because they own New Austin. And then this prostitute just fully robs them. But then you can go around and find out how much money she actually took and rob her back.
Hey there, clever lady. Give me what you took. Now.
Get off, you nasty cur!
After trying to rob her, she tries to walk away. I don't know why she's walking so slowly, but I eventually just went with the good old hog tie method and hog tied her, taking her down from the horse and eventually stealing the rest of the money. And it looks like she got $50 stolen from the Del Lobo guys, and you also do get bad honor for doing that, which is just kind of funny. But I eventually went back into the place and looted it a little bit because I wanted to get some more stuff. But if you guys did make it to the end of this video was extremely long, so if you did make it the way to this video, thank you guys for watching this full video. I feel like the shacks were a lot more interesting than I thought they would be. I mean, I don't really think the shacks are all that interesting compared to like the point of interest or the abandoned place, but I feel like this did turn out to be a really good video. If you guys do want more videos like this, please subscribe. There's also going to be a ton more videos like this right now, and there should be an amazing video popping up right now, so go watch that.